What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Engage 8 podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and with my co host, I have Josh, but unfortunately, Mike could not make it today. He's out of town with Labor Day plans and stuff like that. And today, we're going to be previewing week one and getting into a little bit of college football and maybe some betting odds too. Josh, you want to get us started with some college football talk?
Yep, we're recording this on Labor Day, September 4th. So week one is basically over outside of the Clemson game tonight. But some big takeaways I took away from Saturday are Coach Prime stunning TCU on the road, 20 and a half point underdogs, and they win outright. Um, Coach Prime is just that guy, man. He said when he first took the job and he was bringing all of his transfers in, he said, "I'm bringing my luggage with me, and it's Louis." And his luggage was definitely Louis. Shitter Sanders, 500 yards. Travis Hunter, 119 yards catching, and he gets a pick. I mean, that's just such a talented roster, and Deion Sanders is just showing that he can go down as one of the great coaches in the league right now.
Yeah, they definitely showed up and they looked just like a really well coached team. And like you said, Travis Hunter, he is him. His interception, you heard the announcers talking about it. 100 times out of 100, that flat route is going to be wide open and it's a walk-in touchdown. But he jumped it and came away with it, and that's a game-changing play. And considering the final score was three points, 45-42, I think it was, and that made the difference in that game. So he's definitely got a little bit of work to do on the offensive side. Right now, he's basically just beating guys with speed and his pure athleticism. In the pros, it's definitely way too early to talk about right now, but I think he would have more success as a corner rather than receiver, but that's still a couple years away.
Yeah, I mean, he was recruited as a DB. When you're as talented as him, you can get away with playing both sides of the ball in college and high school. I don't see him being a receiver in the NFL, but I mean that play that you were just talking about, the way that he was guarding that slant and then just stops on a dime and jumps that. I
It
think
was
was it a wheel route or a
insanely.
drag? I think it was
I
a
think it
wheel
was
route,
just a
right?
flat route or something from the
Yeah,
running back.
and it was just beautiful. It was one of the better plays I've seen in a long time from a DB. But next up, last night's game, LSU FSU. LSU was 1.5 point favorites. They end up getting blown out in the second half by FSU. Jaden Daniels, the quarterback of LSU, dual threat quarterback with one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in college football last year. He looked good for a lot of the game. LSU left some points out there, especially in the first half. I know their first drive, they had like 6 or 7 plays inside the 5 and they don't score. So that hurt them greatly. And then Jared Verse, the DN from Florida State, is just a freak. We knew that going into the season, and he showed it on the biggest stage week one.
Yeah, I've tweeted about Jared Verse a couple times. I said that he is my official 2024 draft crush for the Chicago Bears because he's a physical freak. He can get around that edge. He can come around on stunts inside with insane speed. The entire Florida D line really just looked like they were an insane unit who just kept crushing that pocket and making Daniels try and work outside and make something out of nothing, which he couldn't because he's not the most elite of prospect quarterbacks, but he's good enough to make it happen. But Florida's defense was just suffocating that entire second half. If you looked at the box score at the end of the game, you would not think it was even remotely close in the first half. It was an insane second half showing by Florida State.
Yeah, a lot of drop passes too from both sides. LSU, especially in the second half, those drop passes were killing them. End of the third quarter, they had that big gain that they would have had like 30 yards. Drop the pass, you come out of the fourth quarter or come into the fourth quarter, excuse me. Next play, it throws a pick. So obviously that was brutal. But yeah, like we said, Verse looked great and he looked virtually unblockable for a lot of that game. And then my last point here was just Caleb Williams, future number one overall pick, 2 games in, 597 yards, 9 touchdowns, 0 picks. Say what you want about the talent around him and the talent he's playing against, but he's a freak and he's going to go back to back Heisman's.
Yeah, nothing much else to say about that. He's going to be number one pick. Whoever has number one overall pick, that pick is going to be worth King's ransom, or which I think it'd be smart for Cardinals. Let's just hypothetically say that they're going to finish number one. They should take him and move Kyler if they can, because that just resets the rookie clock. He's just what seems to be a generational talent. And you don't see many guys getting that Pat Mahomes comparison right out of college, but the way he moves off script and creates, it's just very Mahomes esque.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Caleb Williams many times on the pod already, but he's just up there with Luck and Trevor Lawrence as some of the most highly touted prospects in the past 10, 15 years. So I'm excited to see him get to the league and see what he's going to do. I hope he's in a position where he doesn't have weak weapons and a weak O line, but I think he can get himself out of that situation if that happened.
Yeah.
Um, Anything else to say about college football before we get into the week one preview?
I was honestly just going to say, like, speaking of Mahomes, let's just lead ourselves into Detroit and Kansas City. Thursday Night
Perfect.
Football, 3 days. It's
Yes.
best time of the year. I'm so excited for it.
I am very excited too. It's almost surreal that the Lions are playing on opening kickoff. I'm just so happy to see it. When I see Dan Campbell run out of that tunnel, I might shed a tear on Thursday night. But all right, let's get into the preview for the Lions Chiefs. It's looking like Chris Jones is not going to play, which is the X factor in the game, in my opinion. They're going against one of the best O lines in the league in the Lions, and their pass rush is not gonna. It's just not gonna be there. Jared Goff's gonna have time all day. It's gonna come to the fact of, can the receivers get space and can he hit his targets? And it seems like he's been doing that. The Kansas City secondary just isn't good enough, in my opinion, to hang if they can't get any sort of pass rush whatsoever. And that's not as much of a knock on them as it is on the defensive line, in my opinion.
Yeah, this game's going to be a little bit of a part two of the Mahomes Goff Monday Night Football shootout from, I don't know, way back in 2018 with the Rams and Chiefs. But this time it's going to be, oddly, the Lions and the Chiefs, which you would never think to say with the Lions' reputation of the last few years. But they've earned their spot in the opening kickoff game. And yeah, Jared Goff, if he can just get the ball to his guys, especially the younger ones like Laporta and Gibbs out of the backfield, obviously Amon-Ra, that secondary and defensive line will not be able to do much against the Lions offense. And then on the other side, you got Mahomes. That's all you need. So it's going to be a fantastic opening night game. Fantasy football wise, I've got Jahmyr Gibbs in a couple leagues, so I'm very excited to see him get a touchdown, maybe two, and hopefully steal me a game in our dynasty league. But I guess that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think outside of the Chris Jones thing, I think the other biggest X factor is probably going to be what the Lions can do on defense. Obviously, like we've talked about before, it's a completely revamped defense personnel wise, and they're gonna have to get some big stops to win this game. They're gonna have to get to Mahomes and put him under pressure, like we've seen in some of the biggest games of Mahomes' career, specifically the 49ers game. The way you beat Mahomes and the Chiefs and Andy Reid is getting to Mahomes. If the Lions can do that with their 6-7 man rotation of a pass rush, depending on if Bugs is going to play or not, uh, I think they're going to win the game. I think they need to get a few. They just need to get a few stops because, like I just said, I think the offense is going to flow. I think they're going to put up 30 points easily. But the thing is, the Chiefs are also going to put up 30 points. So I see this game smashing the over, and it's really going to depend on who can get the most stops. And I just like the Lions defense better.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. It's so hard to bet against Mahomes. But like you said, the Lions got a couple more playmakers on the defensive side of the ball to perhaps force a mistake and get that extra possession. And with that, like you said, 6-7 man defensive rotation, if you can keep guys fresh, especially Aiden Hutchinson, where he can really just go all in on a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and maybe just get a strip sack, take him out of field goal range, or just a sack in general, that can change the tide of the game. And it's going to be, I'm just so excited. It's going to be such a fun game to watch. Football is back, and I'm really just giddy just thinking about it.
Yeah, we've made it, man. We have made it. And the Chiefs receiving core, also outside of Travis Kelce, is weak. I saw that it looks like Kadarius Toney is going to play, which is big for them. No Kadarius Toney would make this even more of a challenge for the Chiefs in my eyes. But for my pick, I went back and forth on this for a while. I am always going to be honest on here. If I think my team's going to lose, I'm going to tell you I think my team's going to lose. No Chris Jones. I think the Lions go into Arrowhead, and I think they shock the world on Thursday night.
I went with Kansas City. It's just like I said before, it's Mahomes. You can't bet against one of the best quarterback talents we've ever seen in the league. It's such a tough thing to do. And going into Arrowhead for Detroit, that's a crazy ask. I think they will be very close to beating them. You could go either way, especially with Chris Jones not playing. But it's just you got Mahomes and Kelsey, arguably one of the greatest uh, pass catcher and passer duos of all time. And I think they're just gonna connect for a lot, probably a couple scores because who else is Mahomes gonna throw to, right?
Right.
But it's on paper it makes sense to go Detroit because they match up really well, especially without Chris Jones for the Chiefs. But it's Mahomes. It's you can't bet against them no matter the matchup.
I don't disagree about not betting against Mahomes, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be very similar to week 18 last year. The Lions going into a hostile environment in Lambeau. The Packers need to win to get in. You're playing one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and the defense comes through and gets stops. And it's going to be warm, and Goff is historically significantly better in the warm weather than he is in the cold. So I'm excited to get that off. We're also going to give up, or we're gonna tell you Mike's picks for each of these games as we finish off. So Mike had Kansas City, right?
Yeah, here Kansas City.
Yep. Okay, cool. You have the graphic up, so
Yeah, I got to pull it up right next to me.
awesome. So with that, we can move on to the next game. Next game I have is Panthers at Falcons. The Panthers, in my opinion, just have too many holes, mainly on defense, to compete with a talented roster of the Falcons. The Panthers are going to end up scoring some points because I like their talent on offense for the most part. O-line is shaky. DJ Chark is now hurt, which isn't great. But I think they'll score some points. But the Falcons defense is just they're too good to give up enough points where they would lose this ball game. I think it's a really good warm-up game for the Falcons, especially with Ritter in his first real season starting. They get to go up against a weak defense, and then we already know about the weapons of Atlanta. We don't necessarily need to get into that and the O-line. So I like the Falcons.
I also have the Falcons, but I feel like this is gonna be one of those ugly ball games where it's like 14 to like 17 at the end, or even going into the fourth quarter. You got Bryce Young for the Panthers, but he just has no one around him. He's got an okay line, but then Miles Sanders to hand it off to, but Thielen and Chark, that's just mid. That's just you're not.
And it's not even Chark now. Now it's just Thielen.
Right, exactly. But like you just don't have the weapons to really distribute the ball to. And Atlanta, they've got weapons galore. You got London Pitts, Patterson, and Bijan Robinson. It's going to be really sad for Atlanta if they lose the game with all those weapons compared to what Carolina has, and especially being a home opener, hoping that Ritter really comes out and is just an okay distributor. He doesn't have to be like anything special, but hopefully he can come out and distribute the ball a little bit and just lead him to a victory for my sake because I picked them. So
yeah, I've been pretty vocal all offseason about how I feel about what the Falcons have done and how they've improved their roster as a whole. Now it's just time to see what they can do on the field with Ritter. If Ritter can be even a middle of the pack quarterback, I think they're going to be a playoff team, and I think they'll win the division. So I think, like I said, I love the matchup for them, and I love that they get to start at home. And first game on the road for a rookie quarterback rarely turns out well in the NFL. So this was pretty easy for me to pick the Falcons. I was shocked to see that the Falcons were only 3.5-point favorites in this one.
Yeah, I think 3.5, like you said, 3.5 points. Very shocking, honestly, given the context. And Mike also went with Atlanta for this pick. So I'd assume he had similar reasons to why we selected them. But hopefully next week we will be able to get his thoughts on how the game actually went and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm ready to move on.
Yep. And Mike, by the way, will be back for the review of week 1 that we will record on Sunday night during Sunday Night Football. So this is just a one-time thing for him. But the next game I got here is the Texans at Ravens. This was another really easy one for me. I think it's a pretty tough matchup for Stroud, playing a talented Ravens defense on the road in a tough place to play. Stroud should have some good protection for his first game, despite not having a great O-line. Because like we said, the Ravens D-line isn't fantastic as far as the pass rush goes. So I think that will be good for him to not get completely beat up in his first game. But the Ravens are going to have great protection for Lamar all game. Their O-line's great. They're not playing a fantastic pass rush from the Texans. And I think the Ravens secondary is just going to lock up the Texans weapons. They don't have much in the weapons department, and the Ravens secondary is one of the honestly just their linebackers and their secondary is just one of the best in the league. And it's a tough matchup. It's a tough matchup for the Texans here.
Yeah, Ravens are a very well coached team. They're just going to outmatch the Texans at every position group. Honestly, Lamar is going to use his weapons. He's going to do his thing, running around. Even if Will Anderson does get a little bit of pressure, but I don't see much going on outside of Stroud maybe making a couple wow throws to his okay receivers, who will probably barely get open with, like you said, a really good secondary and a really good defense in general.
Yeah. They'll probably struggle to score points. I'm sure that Stroud will have a highlight or two, as the young talented rookies tend to early in the season. But he'll probably throw a couple picks, and that'll be the difference. I see the Ravens winning this game by multiple scores.
Yeah, and I don't think a couple picks are going to be the difference. I think it's just going to be the fact that Baltimore is going to put up probably 35, 40 points on them, and Houston's going to struggle to get 20 just because the talent difference is quite wide, in my opinion. But I went Baltimore. Mike also went Baltimore. So we kind of went a 3 for 3 with the last couple matchups here.
All right, clean sweep on that one. For the next one, staying in the NFC or the AFC North, excuse me, with the Bengals at Browns. I think this is one of my favorite matchups of the week, talent-wise. I think it's a pretty even matchup. Two teams that are great in the trenches, both on the offensive and defensive side. I think which wide receiver is going to get better space in this game is going to be the difference, and the Bengals just have better weapons. In the previews, I did talk about how I'm not as big on the Bengals as I have been in years past, but I think week one, really even matchup for them. Joe Burrow's not going to get hit a ton with a okay O-line, despite the fact that they're playing one of the better D-lines in the game. So I think that's going to be a real chess match as far as who can get to the quarterback more. And I don't know. I think the Browns' home field advantage could keep them in this game, but overall, I think I'm leaning Bengals.
I'm kind of leaning the same way as you, but kind of for a different reason. I think Deshaun Watson is going to be the X factor of this game. If he can come out and show that he is he's better than what he showed last year, and he can hand the ball off to Nick Chubb and let him do his thing, use play action, get it to Amari Cooper, he can definitely keep them in this game. I was talking about it in the offseason. Cleveland's a crazy talented team. They've got talent up and down the entire roster. They signed Zadarius Smith to help out Myles Garrett, a couple big space eaters on the D-line as well. But yeah, if Deshaun Watson can be his old Houston self, this game definitely could be a lot different than Cincinnati just walking away with a 10-point victory.
Yeah, I don't see this game being easy for the Bengals whatsoever. Joe Burrow, obviously, he seems like he's going to be okay from that calf injury, but it's still going to be his first live action snaps since the injury. So that could be huge, especially if the tackles cannot block for him. So that's going to be really big to hope that Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith aren't coming off the edge and attacking him all game. If that happens, then I think this game could go very differently. But like I said, I'm slightly leaning Bengals. I think the weapons will make the difference for Cincinnati.
Yeah, me and Mike are in the same boat as you. Both went Cincinnati, and I think we're good to move on to the next one.
All right. Next one, I have Jags at Colts. The Colts defense is very unproven at the moment. The Jaguars offense seemed to be proven. They were great the second half of last year, and they've been great in training camp so far. So I see this being a high scoring game for the Jags. It should be interesting for the Colts, who have a historically very talented O-line, but last season they were very underperformed, especially the however $1 million man Quentin Nelson is right now. But I think this will be a good tune-up for them, considering the Jags don't have a great pass rush. So they should be able to protect Anthony Richardson and let him go off a little bit. I just think the Jags offense is a little too talented for the Colts defense to really hang in the game. This could be a situation where Anthony Richardson has the best rookie quarterback stats of the week, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the best stats, but he definitely has potential to get the best performance out there because just Jacksonville's defense isn't the greatest on paper. And if he can run around a little bit, kind of create off script, that could be really interesting. But Jacksonville, they've they proved last year towards the back half of the year they've got a quarterback. They plan on letting him just let it rip, and they've got a brand new shiny toy with Calvin Ridley, who is going to probably tear up the Colts secondary, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
letting Christian Kirk move from that wide receiver 1 to receiver 2 role, that's definitely going to help out a little bit too. Evan Engram, he's going to tear it up the middle. Well, maybe a little bit because Shaq Leonard is finally healthy, and I'm excited to see him back on the field because he's definitely been missed. He's a turnover machine, and he's just tackle monster too. He's a great linebacker, and I hate that he's had to deal with injuries the last little bit. But I don't really expect Jacksonville to drop this one, even though they are on the road.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think Shaq Leonard would have to have a monster game for this to really be close. The secondary is going to get torn up by the Jags' weapons. Leonard's going to have to be all over the field, and I'm not sure he is going to be able to do enough to make a significant difference, despite how great he is. I got here that I think the Jags only lose this game if they absolutely fall apart on defense and it becomes a shootout. But with a rookie quarterback, I don't expect the Jags to completely fall apart. I'm going with Jacksonville here.
Yeah, Mike and I both went with Jacksonville, but if I had to guess, it might be closer than you think because Richardson could just make a lot of plays. He could
That would be the difference.
Yeah, he could just flash and show a lot of potential with the arm, along with his legs in the run game too. Obviously, no Jonathan Taylor for the first 4 weeks for Indy, but if they could maybe stop the run a little bit on defense and force Trevor Lawrence into some tough situations and pass, maybe it can come down to a fourth quarter. But I don't see Jacksonville really losing this one.
Yeah, I think Anthony Richardson would probably have to play near perfect. They'd have to get it. I think they're going to have to at least score 30 points to stay in
That's
this
just
one.
that's just asking a lot of a rookie QB,
It's
honestly.
asking a lot, exactly. And I tend to lean away, at least from a betting standpoint. I tend to lean away from betting on rookie quarterbacks week one, and a lot of them, as we've seen, have poor matchups. But next game here I got is the Bucs at Vikings. Good news for Baker is he gets to face one of the worst defenses in his first Bucs start. Bad news is he's not good. So that's a significant problem. But I think the Bucs would have to absolutely shut down the Vikings offense to even have a chance in this one. And with Justin Jefferson, I don't think that's really possible for them. The Vikings defense isn't talented, but I think like we talked about last week, with Brian Flores really drawing up a lot of blitzes. I think heavy blitzes will significantly impact this poor Bucs O-line and Baker, who has been pretty bad his entire career when facing a lot of pressure. So honestly, I think Kirk doesn't turn the ball over. I think this is an easy win for the Vikings.
Yeah, same boat as you. I got Minnesota. So does Mike, but Tampa Bay, they don't have a quarterback. Unfortunately, Baker's just not it. He's just their bridge guy until Kyle Trask turns into the next Brett Favre or whatever, or they just want to draft somebody early on next year. But yeah, Minnesota, Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, they're gonna run away with this game. Tampa, they're gonna have to try and get their first win of the year in week 2 against Chicago.
Yeah, I think for the Bucs front office, I think they should probably just spend Saturday watching Caleb Williams and forget about Sunday. Because that's like you said, Baker's not the guy. He's definitely a bridge quarterback. And honestly, I don't have much more to say about this game. I don't think it'll be very close, especially Vikings at home. A lot of skulls going on and a lot of touchdowns probably.
Yeah, same as you. Not really much else to say. Sorry, Baker, but your days are numbered.
Yeah, prove us wrong. But all right,
please don't.
Yeah. Next game here, I have the Titans at Saints. The Saints do not have a great pass rush, but luckily for them, the Titans don't have a good O-line. So I think that being a weak point for the Saints, and not having to worry about facing a great O-line that they're not going to be able to get any pressure on is probably going to be pretty big for them. Saints, obviously at home, historically great home team. Their defense has had a great camp despite not being a fantastic unit. And they get to play a team that has some uncertainties at quarterback. Obviously, Ryan Tannehill it's their guy for now, but I've never been the biggest Tannehill guy. He kind of at this point in his career kind of feels like a Walmart version of Jared Goff, in my opinion. Can't move as well, isn't as accurate, not as strong of an arm. But yeah, I think if the Saints D line, although they're not greatly talented, if they can get to the quarterback, I think they can make easy work.
Yeah, the Titans O line is not great. Cameron Jordan, if he is he playing? I haven't done too much research about this game because it's nothing like
I
too
think he's playing.
interesting. I would imagine so, but he's probably going to go nuts off the edge. But for some reason, my brain just told me take Vrabel and the Titans. Like I don't know why. It's just it feels so weird to bet against them against the Saints, who just yeah they got Derek Carr, but he's new. It's going to be a weird game, I think, and I don't know why. I think Tennessee might just pull out with a win.
I completely agree about the coaching situation. Obviously, Vrabel is one of the better coaches in the league, one of the most respected coaches in the league. But the only way I could see the Titans winning this game is if their defense comes to compete and can just really shut down the Saints on the offensive end. Cameron Jordan is playing, so that could be a big factor. If Cameron Jordan's getting to their quarterback, whoever it may be, maybe they make a mid-game change. You never know.
Wouldn't shock
But
me. They got three of them. They could just spin a wheel and see what happens.
if I'm the Titans this season, I'm just trying to figure out who it is because they're not winning anything. So I think they should just be trying to figure out who their quarterback is. But uh, I went with the Saints here.
Yeah, I went with Tennessee just cause I don't know why, and Mike went with New Orleans. Now there's that saying that says if you got two quarterbacks, you have none. Tennessee, they got three, so I don't know if that means they got like a super QB or if that means they have -1 QBs or something like that. I don't know how the math's going to work out with that, but I'm going to move on.
Yeah, I'd probably lean -1 there, but I like Levis, of course. But all right. Next game here, I got the Niners at Steelers. It's a young, unproven Steelers O line, and they do not get gifted an easy task in the first game, playing one of the better defensive fronts in the league at the Niners. While Brock Purdy could struggle early in his first actual game, obviously he played a little bit of preseason, but his first actual game since coming off of the elbow injury. But I think the Niners defense will just do enough for them to be in full control of this game. Kenny Pickett is obviously at a great camp, and he's one of those quarterbacks who everyone I feel like is saying is he's going to have his breakout season this year in his sophomore year. But I think he's probably going to get beat up, and the Steelers are going to need that home field advantage to keep him in it.
Yeah, for me, I think this is going to be another low scoring game, but it's not going to be an ugly low scoring game. It's going to be like one of those defensive brawls where it's like four-dimensional chess is what it's going to feel like because both of these defenses are going to be really good, really well coached. Tomlin, you know what he does out of Pittsburgh every year. He's going on like a massive streak of not finishing below 500, right? And like you said, Pickett, he's probably going to break out this year, or he's looking to at least, with that nice little arsenal of weapons he's got with Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and all them. But San Francisco, they're showing off their brand new toy with Javon Hargrave, him combined with Bosa and that great linebacking core with headed by Fred Warner. It's going to be San Francisco, but it's going to be honestly a surprisingly close game and my favorite game of the 1 o'clock slot.
No, I completely agree. I think it's going to be very surprisingly close too. When you look at these two rosters on paper, the Niners definitely do have the better roster, but being the Steelers being at home, I think is going to play a huge factor. Obviously, the terrible towels will be swinging in Pittsburgh, and I think the Steelers could keep this one close, but the Niners are the better roster, and I think the Niners get the win week one.
Yeah, they definitely got the playmakers on the offensive end to really like Debo. He can just break like a nice little screen pass for 60 yards. CMC, he can do anything in between the tackles or outside or even in the slot because, hey, it's Kyle Shanahan. We'll throw him wherever, and these guys will still make plays. But yeah, I got San Fran, and so does Mike. So seems like going to be a clean sweep of that one.
All right, clean sweep there. Next game here. Two of the worst teams in the league, the Cardinals and the Commanders. Cardinals at Commanders. Like I said, two of the worst rosters in the league. The Commanders probably have a better roster because of their defense. Actually, they do have a better roster because of their defense. But like I said, two bottom of the barrels as far as how wins this season, in my opinion. The Commanders are looking to see if Sam Howell can be the guy. If he can't, then maybe you start sitting some guys and seeing if you can get that number one pick. But I think the Commanders defense will be able to get to whoever the Cardinals decide they're going to put out there. Right now, is it Dobbs?
I don't know. I mean,
I
they just traded for him, so he's got like,
yeah.
what, 3 maybe 4 weeks to learn the entire book and get chemistry with the offense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And Gannon was saying that he doesn't want to say anything because he's trying to get that advantage. I
I mean,
guess.
no one has any idea, so I guess it's working.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it matters if you don't have talent.
I
But
think they'd be better off throwing a one-legged Kyler out there rather than
right.
anybody else they got. But
Honestly, I think the Commanders' offensive weapons, will definitely be a big factor in this game, along with their defense, of course. And then first home game since the Dan Snyder farewell. So I think the stadium will probably be bumping, and I think the Commanders get this one.
yeah, not much else to say about it. I'd be shocked if Arizona even scores a touchdown on this game. Washington's defense is going to keep them from probably crossing the 50 a good amount of the time. And yeah, Dotson and Scary Terry are going to make plays regardless of what Howell does. They got a nice little duo with Gibson and Robinson. I almost called him 50 Cent for fun, but yeah, this not going to be a pretty game. It's going to be an ugly one, but Washington's going to just smother Arizona and just kill any chance they had at winning week one.
I take it Mike went with the Commanders as well.
Yeah, we swept that one.
Yep.
So.
All right. Next one here, Packers at Bears. I think the Packers defense is going to feast on that bad Bears O-line, especially with the injuries at guard. I think the Bears' key to victory in this game is protecting Justin Fields, as it's been for a long time now. Obviously, there's a deep history with the Bears and the Packers, and over our lifetimes, it hasn't been much of a rivalry. Aaron Rodgers obviously has owned the Bears for a long time, but he has since sold his ownership to Jordan Love, and we'll see how that goes, especially with all the offseason comments, the attempted Father's Day joke that didn't really work for Jordan Love. But I think this is going to be a great game.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Fox game of the week for a reason. You got the whole storyline part of it where Fields is looking to hit that year 3 breakout with the new weapons at receiver and the boosted O-line. But then you got Jordan Love, who's getting the reins from Rodgers. And like you said, that stake in ownership in Chicago hasn't been much of a rivalry, like you said. It sucks, but if I'm Chicago, this is the most important game you've played since that 2018 wildcard game.
Probably.
You cannot lose. You cannot lose this game. The year after the bad man is out of the picture, and this new kid who basically called you his father with the Father's Day thing, which I think that was pretty funny. And I don't think he knew what he was doing or anybody else, but
Packers fans were streaming context.
Right, but
it's not that serious. It's not that serious.
It was a good little bit, but yeah, I'm definitely going to be shaking a little bit throughout those 1:00 games. Won't be able to fully take in that the football is back, 7 hours of commercial-free football. Won't be able to take that red zone in, but once 4:25 hits, it's just going to be all bets are off. Just may the best team win. I pick Chicago. I kind of have to. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I think the Bears, they could put up a decent amount of points, but like you said, depends on the offensive line. I could talk your ear about this game for hours because they're my team. I really could. But I understand why Green Bay could be picked to win, but you also got to look at Justin Fields, and if he explodes, this offense doesn't really have much of a limit if they're healthy. So I'm very excited for week one for Chicago, and yeah, I'm just ready to keep going.
Yeah, you said that you think it's going to be closer than people think. Vegas thinks that the Bears are going to win the game. The Bears are favored. Obviously, they are at home. But I completely agree about this being just a monster game for the Bears. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the trajectory of the season is kind of depends on this game. If Jordan Love goes in there and throws for 4 touchdowns, 300 yards, no picks, and they win by 20, it's going to be a tough look. It's going to be a tough look.
I might go into hiding. It might have to happen.
And I don't think that's going to happen, but I also don't think there's no possibility of that happening. The Packers young receivers get a great first matchup. against a mid-level secondary. I think the key for the Bears, like I said, protecting Fields, but I also think on the other end, it's getting to Love. Obviously, the poor pass rush and poor O line is two of the biggest issues for the Bears. But if they can sure that up, obviously, you say in these divisional games, throw the records away. There are no records here, but there
Very
is a
true.
historical record, and I'm gonna go with Green Bay.
You said there's a historical record, but that also involves, especially in the last like 20 plus years, that's Favre and Rodgers. And no matter what you think of Jordan Love, he's not going to be Rodgers or Love. He's not going to be this Hall of Fame talent. Sure, he could be a very good quarterback, but we don't know yet. But I definitely do believe he will not be the third straight Hall of Fame level quarterback. He still could be good, maybe lead a playoff run depending if Green Bay gets healthy. But Rashawn Gary, he's going to be on a snap count. ACL injuries, they're not easy to come back from. He might not have that step to really take advantage of the rookie Darnell Wright the entire game. But man, I'm excited to see Justin Fields out there. I have high hopes for this offense. I really, really think they could crack the top 10 if they're healthy and if Fields does take the next step as a passer. I think he will lean into the running a little bit because in only like 10 games last year, like the back 10 games, he had 900, like over 900 rushing yards. And that was when they started to throw him into the scheme of running the ball. So if they can get him running early, not necessarily running him into the ground like a workhorse bell cow running back, whatever, but that can open up a lot of the pass game for them, which can help them attack the middle of the field with DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney. They some underrated weapons for Chicago. I'm very much looking forward to it. I picked Chicago. Mike seems to be on my side. Could be for the same reasons. He also picked Chicago, and I'm glad that we got this little matchup 2-1. But big showdown on Sunday.
I completely agree with the Bears having to lean on the run with Fields. Packers great secondary. Say what you want about the Bears' weapons. I think there's a lot of differing opinions. Honestly, it might be one of the most polar situations in football. Are the Bears' weapons sneaky underrated, or is it names of receivers that actually aren't that good in Mooney and Claypool? So for me, it was actually pretty close, despite my hatred for the Bears. But like I said, I'm always going to keep it a buck on here. I'm always going to say what I actually think, and keep my biases out of it.
I would hope so.
And for now, I mean, I could just pick against the Bears 17 times. I'm not
Yeah,
going to do.
it feels like you would sometimes.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to do it. There's just so many question marks on both teams, and so many things that we don't know what we're going to see, that it wouldn't shock me if this was a close game. It wouldn't shock me if either team won by multiple scores. So, like I said, I went with the Packers, but I'm ready to move on if you are.
Yeah, I mean, if I kept going, I'd be going for hours. So yeah, I'm good to move on.
All right. Next game I have here as we continue on with the 4:00 slate is the Raiders at Broncos. The Raiders have a bad O-line and a bad D-line, and that's two of Denver's strengths. So I think that's a big problem for them. Jimmy G under pressure early and often, I think is going to be a problem for them. While on the flip side, Russell Wilson's going to have a lot of time to make the right reads, which is a problem, or was a problem for him last season. But he gets Sean Payton now. He gets to be at home, and the altitude is always a factor early in the season. Obviously, Vegas a little bit kind of used to the altitude, but I think that'll play a factor, and I think the Broncos win by multiple scores.
Yeah, I got Denver winning as well, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing Devontae Adams and Pat Surtain go at it. That'll be a fun matchup. See how Jimmy G does within that offense. But Sean Payton with Russell Wilson, that's going to be a nice little duo. I think they're going to put on a nice little show. Unfortunately, probably no Jerry Jeudy this week, but yeah, Sutton's going to have a good game, and they also got a couple other weapons. They got Mims out there. But I think Russ is he's gonna do some damage. He's gonna try and put his name out there and be like, yeah, last year that was a fluke. That was all on Hackett. As much respect as I can give him, keep him away from me. Sean Payton's my guy. We're buddy. We're gonna make some noise in the AFC West this year.
Yeah, I like the Broncos overall, and I don't like the Raiders overall. So that's kind of as simple as it is for me. And like I said, I'm always going to be a trenches first guy. And if you don't have it in the trenches, you are going to get bullied over and over and over again by teams who do. So pretty easily a Broncos pick for me.
Yeah, I also went Broncos, and so did Mike. So seems like we're in a lot of unison so far in week one.
There's a lot of lopsided matchups, and we're in a situation where there's not much like gray area judgment. I feel like we're just looking at rosters at this point. So it's like there's teams that have good rosters and there's teams that have bad rosters. But
once we get a couple weeks in, we'll be able to make a couple inferences. Like, for example, of course, my Chicago Bears. Like, if Fields pops off the first couple weeks, how do we view that Chiefs matchup? No, I'm kidding. It's Mahomes. He's gonna kill him. But after a game or two, you'll start asking questions. Like, maybe if this game happened a few weeks later, are the circumstances still the same? Is there an injury that we don't know about yet?
Right.
But yeah, I think the Monday night game, we'll get to that in a little bit. That's where you could really go either way.
Yep. And another one here where I think you definitely could go either way is the Dolphins at Chargers, which is the next game here. These are two great teams in the AFC, two very talented rosters. The Chargers get their improved weapons, and they're playing against a Dolphins team that wasn't a great defense last year, but is much improved this year, and I think that's going to make for a fun game. The Chargers should have a chip on their shoulder after how they went out last season. I don't know how you take the field week one this year after last year and you don't have that chip on your shoulder, especially with a lot of the returning players for the Chargers.
Yeah, this is definitely, if Green Bay and Chicago wasn't on the schedule, this is definitely game of the week. Tua and Herbert, same draft class. A lot of weapons on the field with Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, Mike Williams, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. You got this is a star-studded game. And on the defense, you got Bradley Chubb, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. You got a lot of studs on the field here. And I got the Chargers winning it. And it doesn't feel like it's going to be like an obvious pick. You could see Tyreek Hill take something for 50 yards, or you could see Justin Herbert just make a hero throw at the end of the game and just seal it or win it or whatever. You can see a lot of these superstar players make a superstar play, which can turn the tables on this game.
Yep, I went back and forth on this one too. This, like you said, is one of the best matchups. I love the little storylines of like the same draft class with Herbert and Tua. And the biggest thing for me, I think, is going to be the Chargers pass rush. I think if their pass rush can continue to get to Tua over and over, as we've seen in the past, Tua struggles mightily under pressure. So that could be a big problem for them. Him and the Dolphins are just going to need to hold on to the ball. If they can hold on to the ball, I think they're talented enough to go into LA with a not strong fan base of the Chargers, and I think they could go win that game pretty easily. But I just don't see that happening. I think Tua is going to turn the ball over a couple times, and I think that'll end up being the difference. And I'm going with the Chargers here.
Yeah, me and Mike both went Chargers. But just because we chose it was a sweep doesn't mean that the Dolphins are outmatched.
Surprises me.
Right.
I was shocked to see that we all went on the same side on this one. I went back and forth. I originally had the Dolphins, and then I was like, you know what? Traveling cross country to LA, it was close. There's little factors.
Yeah, if it was in Miami, you might lean the other way. It's just one of those games,
Exactly. I'm very excited for that one. Next one here, we get a Super Bowl rematch from a few years back with the Eagles at Patriots. End of the day, Eagles defense is way too talented for this bottom half of the league offense and the Patriots. Hurts should have his way with the Pats defense, despite them being great. We know what the Eagles are. We know what Jalen Hurts is. So I'm looking forward to seeing them compete and be just as great as they were last year. It feels like so long ago now that it's been like a month since we talked about the Eagles in the original division preview. But like we said then, they probably have the best roster in the league, and they're playing a team I'm not too high on.
Yeah, like you said, Super Bowl rematch. Teams are vastly different. It's instead of Foles and Brady, it's Hurts and Jones. And I think Eagles are pretty easily going to come out and handle this game, regardless of their losses on the defensive side of the ball. And I think Hurts, he might even take another step into the right direction with his passing game. and just start just launching deep balls and working the intermediate and short game too. I think the Eagles come away with this pretty easily, and you kind of covered everything pretty well. So
Yeah. Obviously, the big factors: Bill Belichick and Gillette. Obviously, you can never just completely write them off, but they're playing arguably the best team in the league, and their offense is just so many question marks on the offensive end for the Pats. Obviously, you get the bad men out of there, especially Matt Patricia, who this hopefully will be the last time I ever mention his name. But you get the bad man out of there, which is huge for Mac Jones. And I don't see a way that the Pats compete in this game unless the offense just finds something. But just finding something against the Eagles doesn't happen.
yeah, I went with Philly. Mike also went with Philly. So another clean sweep. We seem to be very impartial about this. No, I said it earlier, but yeah, a lot of these games just don't really seem like there's a lot of controversy.
Yeah, and I think that's just the NFL, to be honest. We have three guys here. It's not like we have a panel of six where you're gonna get some different opinions. All year long, we're gonna have games where like I'm not just gonna pick the Pats here to just be different.
Right.
I mean, maybe as we get farther in the year, and if one of us is slacking a little bit and needs to catch up, maybe then you start going against the grain,
Right.
trying to collect some wins. But for now, I think we're all just trying to play it safe and just call it how it is.
Yeah.
But for the next game here, I don't have much about this game, but the Rams at Seahawks. With no Cup, the Rams' poor weapons are going to struggle greatly against one of the best secondaries in the league in Seattle. Obviously, you've got the 12th man. It's going to be loud in there. Seahawks coming off of a season where they were supposed to have a top pick in the draft, and they end up going and they stun the league and they make the playoffs. The Rams' weak defense has to go and face a team that has Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and JSN. So I think the Seahawks blow them out, to be honest.
I don't know about a blowout, but it definitely could be multiple scores. I'd like to see Geno Smith continue his kind of career resurgence and show that it's not just like a 1 year thing, and kind of just kind of make a name for himself, maybe even cement himself into a top 10 quarterback in the league if he really wants to. He's got the weapons around him to do it. So, and this is a great way to start with like a kind of a cakewalk of a secondary to throw against. But yeah, Seattle's definitely got this one.
Definitely. When I was trying to figure out how I think this game's going to go, my two big things were I think Seattle's going to score a ton of points, and I think they're going to shut down the Rams. So that just screams upset to me. I could see this game being something like 35-7. Like I unless Aaron Donald goes and gets like 5 sacks, I don't see a world where the Rams really compete. And Bobby Wagner revenge game.
Yeah, very true. Honestly, man, this is just such an unfortunate game for the Rams because I want to see Aaron Donald in the league for like 3, 4, 5 more years, but if this season just goes south for the Rams like very quickly, he might call it quits like by the trade deadline.
Actually, it's serious. I mean, him and
It's
McVay have been 1 foot in, 1 foot out for like a year
right,
now.
exactly. It's been really unfortunate for the Rams, but that's like we talked about in the AFC and NFC West episode. They sold out for that ring. They got it, but what was the cost? The next like 7 or 8 years of your future? Because
Actually,
they had no pick last year, no pick the year before. Like this is going to be a very dark time in LA following the trades of Cup, Donald, Stafford, or even just like not re-signing them. I would hope they trade them and get something out of it because they are very talented players. But now that I think about it, where would Stafford go? Would he make sense in Atlanta? Would that be a fun little thing to go with?
oh my God. Stafford was one of the best O lines in the league and one of the best weapon groups in the league. That would be something. I'm excited to see Stafford get back out there and hopefully stay healthy for his own sake. I love seeing him out there balling. Personally, I just cannot get out of my head week 18 last year. Rams at Seahawks. Rams got a chance to kick the Seahawks out of the playoffs and put the Lions in, and they could not come through with that game, sadly. So I would like to see them get blown out personally, but that's all I got about that game.
Yeah, me and Mike both had Seattle for that game, so
Right. I figured we would all be on the same page for that one.
yeah, I feel
Um,
like it's hard not to be.
for a classic Sunday night football matchup, which I feel like we get consistently,
I
but
hate
I'm
it.
not complaining. Cowboys at Giants. Happy to see that it's not Giants at Cowboys, at least a little bit of a switch up there. But Cowboys at Giants. Cowboys D line needs to feast on the weak parts of the Giants O line. Obviously, we talked about the Giants do have talent at points on their O line. But the Cowboys D line is one of the best in the league, and obviously you have Micah Parsons. Cowboys secondary is improved, and they're playing against a really weak receiver group in the Giants. The Giants really just have Saquon as far as elite weapons are concerned. So I think the Cowboys defense and as a whole is gonna lock them up, and then that comes down to can Dak and his weapons put up 20, 28, 30 points on the Giants? If they do that, I think they'll win pretty easily.
Yeah, this game, in my opinion, won't be too close because I was never really high on the Giants last year, regardless of what you think of Dable. But Saquon, he's really the only thing that they have, and since they paid Danny Dimes, it's not necessarily going to be one of those. All right, I got my bag, and I'm going to check out a little bit. It's he's just not good enough to be paid that much and then sacrifice on the talent around him. Yeah, they added Jalen Hyde in the draft, but he's more of a speedster than like someone who's going to get open consistently, and you can force feed him 10 to 11 receptions a game. Like they don't have guys on offense. They have Saquon and then a solid offensive line, but they're weak at a couple spots, like you said. The Cowboys should make quick work of this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think for the Giants to have to win, they need to score early and often, and I just don't really see that happening. Um, Another thing I had here is can the Giants pass rush do anything to help out their secondary? And
They won't.
I don't think they can. I really don't. Um, Obviously there's a lot of people that are really high on the Giants. I as well was not very high on them last year. Obviously they shocked some people. I like Dable, but as far as a roster standpoint, I don't love what they have to offer, especially in a division where they have to play the Cowboys and the Eagles 4 times total. So I think that's a problem for the Giants. Just to touch on the Daniel Jones thing really quickly. This morning they restructured his contract.
Oh, really?
So
Really?
they did. So I don't
Wow.
know what they're trying to do. I heard a lot of people heard some murmurs about Mike Evans maybe. Would make sense for them. I think they're definitely one of the teams that would make sense for them. For Mike Evans if he does get traded. So that's just something to monitor. Considering he just signed the deal and they restructured it like a couple months after.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see like this whole Mike Evans thing. I'll see it when I believe it. I don't know why his name just feels Tampa Bay to me because he's been there for so long and he's been so consistent there. But yeah, he'll be one of those like once I see him get traded, I'll be like, oh wow, okay. I know he was rumored a little bit, but I still can't believe that actually happened.
Yeah, me too, to be honest. I'm just waiting to see what comes out there. And I'm also waiting for Monday Night Football for the Bills at Jets.
What a transition.
What a transition. This is one of the games that I'm really, really looking forward to. Obviously, you get the Rodgers debut at home against one of the best teams in the league in the Bills. The Bills have a phenomenal defense, and they did last year, and they're going to have one again. The Jets being able to run the ball will be absolutely huge against this Bills defense. If you could run the ball and then set up some Rodgers play actions against this phenomenal Bills secondary, I think that's really going to be the key for them to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, you got two superstar quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen. I went with the Jets this game because I think it's going to be a very high scoring game, but Buffalo not having Von Miller is really going to hurt them because Rodgers is going to be able to get rid of the ball real fast. And throughout Hard Knocks over the summer, I've actually been watching it a lot more than I really like to admit because of Aaron Rodgers. But it looks like their old line was having issues in camp. Like they just couldn't get protection down. But then again, that's what training camp is for. You iron out all the kinks. And in preseason, you test out some stuff, some concepts and patterns to see if all that stuff can work or has potential to work. and I'm very interested to see how Rodgers and that offense does, especially after being in one place for so long with his career. And Garrett Wilson, I've fallen in love with Garrett Wilson. I think he's going to explode and put his name right up there with the Jamar Chases, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, especially with a guy like Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. I think he's got a lot of potential to just go nuclear this game, even with Buffalo having a few actually really solid corners and safety pieces too.
Yeah, I'm really, really, really excited for this game. The Bills offense is just so explosive and they need to stay that way in this game. They're playing against another top defense in the league. I mean, really, you look at both these teams, it's two top defenses, two top offenses. So I'm happy that the NFL blessed us with this game for Monday Night Football. Which I really just think whichever team turns the ball over more is probably going to end up losing this game. If this game is in Buffalo, I pick the Bills. Because it's not, I'm going to go with the Jets and Rodgers' debut.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got the Jets. I just think Rodgers won't be pressured enough. I think he'll be able to have time to just really do what he wants. But Mike went Buffalo. I I wish he was here so we could hear what he had to say. But that goes for every single one of the games we've talked about so far. But I completely understand where he's coming from. It's hard to bet against Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and what could be once again a top 5 offense for the Bills. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. It's going to be a great Monday night game.
Yeah, I'm excited. I just wanted to touch on really quickly. When did we stop doing 2 Monday night games week 1? We didn't do it the past couple of years, but that was
Did
like
we
a thing
really?
forever. Yeah, there was only one last year and there's one this year. I don't know what COVID killed
Do
that
you think it
too.
was with the
I don't know.
the 17 game schedule maybe or 18
Could
week
be.
17 game schedule?
Yeah, that could be it. I'm not sure how that would affect it. You could easily just move
Right.
like Eagles Pats to Monday night, and that would
I
affect
feel
it.
like the NFL would benefit tremendously if they decided to go 2 Monday night games every week.
It was great. No, 2
Kind
Monday
of
night
like
games
how
was
the
sick.
NBA does on TNT, get an East
Oh,
Coast game for the early slot and then a West Coast on the other side. That'd be really
it was
cool.
great. That first because you go through that whole Sunday and you're tired, and then you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, thank God we got football again tonight. And then when it was 2 games, I was like, oh,
Right. It's just that
6
much better.
hours.
Really cures that bad case of the Mondays, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. So I missed that, but at least we get a blessing on Monday night here.
Yeah, a lot of good games in week 1. Unfortunately, there's a couple duds, but overall,
Gonna have that.
it's going to be a great first week back of football.
Yeah, so I'm so excited. To end this off really quickly, I just wanted to give a few betting picks for all my gamblers out there that are going to be going crazy this week, me included. I'm not going to give up all my picks because that shit ain't free, but
Gatekeeping.
I'll give up a couple. I'm riding with the Lions plus 6.5, and I'm also going to sprinkle a little bit on money line. I do see the Lions winning this game, but in the event they don't, I think it'll still be close. So I went with plus 6.5. I could see maybe a late field goal for the Chiefs or a late touchdown that has them win by 3 or 4. We still cover in that situation. And then the other game I went with is Falcons and Panthers, and I went with Falcons minus 3.5. I just like the Falcons situation so much better, and only getting 3.5 points at home is huge. So yeah, plus 6.5 for the Lions, and then Falcons minus 3.5.
For me, I'm not huge on the betting side of things, but just for you guys, I'll pick some out. I went with Detroit and Kansas City, hammering the over. I think without Chris Jones, Detroit's going to put up some points, and like we said earlier, Mahomes, he's going to do his Mahomes thing. He's gonna get some points as well. It's going to be a close, high scoring game. It's going to be really fun to watch. And then I also went with the under on the Green Bay and Chicago game. We don't know what we're going to get at quarterback from both guys, and Green Bay's defense is really good on paper. I may not be the biggest fan of their safeties, but their corners and pass rush will be pretty solid. So under on the Bears Packers and over on Lions Chiefs for me.
All right, just to reiterate that for you guys, that over on the Lions Chiefs is 54.5, and the under on Bears Packers is 43.5. So Vegas thinks that's going to be a low scoring one too. Yeah, I'm excited for this week. To fill you guys in on the schedule for the regular season. It's currently Monday, like I said, Labor Day. So we're filming this preview that is going to be out on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then at the end of the week, During Sunday Night Football, we're going to record a week review where we talk about all the 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock games on Sunday, as well as Thursday Night Football. And I'm sure we'll commentate on the game going on in the background as well. I know we'll all have it on. And then that video will be out on Monday or Tuesday, and then so on and so forth with a preview for week 2 and a review. So that's it for me. You got any last thoughts, Zach?
Not really. I'm just really excited. It's been a long but very short off season. I feel like we all found work for ourselves, especially getting older a little bit, finding time to really just get through the off season, and it's all worth it. Finally here. Very excited.
Me too. I'm itching even just talking about it. Now we got to go wait 3 more days after talking about football for an hour. But all right, so we'll see everybody in the next one.